Welcome to the Journal Editorial Report. I'm Paul Gigot. President Biden marking his first year in office this week with a closely watched press conference and sinking poll numbers. The Associated Press showing that just 43% of Americans approve of the job he's doing, his lowest rating in that survey since he entered office, with 74% saying the country's headed in the wrong direction. But despite those numbers, the president on Wednesday denied that a course correction is necessary, indicating that it's full speed ahead on his agenda as his party approaches the midterms.
I'm going to be out on the road a lot, making the case around the country with my colleagues who are up for re-election and others, making the case of what we did do and what we want to do, what we need to do. And so I don't think I've overpromised at all, and I'm going to stay on this track.
Let's bring in former Clinton pollster Mark Penn. He's chairman of the Harris Poll and chairman and CEO of the Stagwell Group. Mark, welcome. Good to see you. So as you look at the polling, what accounts for the president's standing, a precipitous fall from midsummer?
Well, our new polling actually has him at about 39% approval, and I think it really is a combination of people seeing 61% say that maybe he's too old to be president. Wow. 54% say he can't handle issues like the complexity of the Ukraine and China. And so I think core competence is number one. And second, of course, the issues here that seem out of control to people, crime, immigration, the economy, inflation. So a combination of him not seeing on top of it and things just going exactly the wrong way on all these big issues.
How much of that personal rating of not being on top of it is related to the 7% inflation, the disaster in Afghanistan, COVID not being under control? Is it just a function of the results people see, or are they really zeroing in on some of these personal traits, how he carries himself, projects himself, communicates?
Well, I think it really fundamentally changed with the pullout in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. That's where they saw the president have to make real-time decisions and statements in a real-time conflict. And he really got an F from the voters in that. And he has not been able to do anything that really recovered from that. Instead, what happened is all these other problems seem to amplify or echo the failure that people saw in Afghanistan.
And he hasn't really picked up at all since Afghanistan. It's in the polling, at least, that I've seen. It's been downhill since then. What about this issue, this question of ideology? Governing too far to the left, running in Congress with a Build Back Better, the Bernie Sanders budget. The president was at pains this week to say, that's not what I've done, that's not fair, but how do the voters see it?
Well, 47% say that the Democratic Party, the administration have gone too far to the left. And you really see in all the polls that normally people favor Democrats over Republicans when you ask them party questions. Right now, they're favoring Republicans over Democrats by pretty wide margins, 6 points in a congressional horse race, 8 points in terms of favorability. This is almost unprecedented in polling. You'd have to go back to maybe 94 to find numbers as lopsided as this.
Wow. Well, the president also stressed his accomplishments legislatively. The infrastructure bill undeniably passed, the COVID bill and $1.9 trillion in spending, that passed. Why isn't he getting more credit for those?
Well, with the economy and inflation out of control, it's very hard to go before the American public and say things are doing well. I've accomplished a lot. I did more than anybody else. Really, they're looking for a plan of action to deal with the problems that they're facing. Almost everyone is influenced by inflation. And in the most recent poll, people particularly zeroed in on groceries and fuel as something that affects their everyday lives. So you're not going to, with a speech anymore, contradict what people see in the stores and at the pump.
Okay. Well, look, Mark, they elected this president only, 14 months ago with 80 million votes. Okay, so they must see some residual, something residual that they like. Does he bring any advantages personally? I mean, do they like him personally? Is there anything he can build on going into the second year?
Well, they did like him personally. And they did like the idea that he would unify the country. And so the real puzzle here is why, given these numbers, he didn't do a pivot and go forward and unify the country. For example, and it was very favorable in this poll I've just done, had he pardoned the people from January 6th who were nonviolent protesters and prosecuted only those who were violent, his numbers would soar because it would be seen as actually putting partisanship aside. So he's got to take some real tangible steps, as we did in the Clinton administration, to really make that pivot. And that's his only way to building numbers, if you ask me.
Yeah, but of course, I can remind you, you didn't do that until after the midterms, where you got a thumping in '94. So I guess, and what I heard from the president on Wednesday didn't sound to me like he's really planning a course correction.
Well, and you see, President Clinton was told he was going to win the '94 congressional elections. I always joke, those elections got me my job because I wasn't hired until after that. Here, you see the snowball coming at your head. You have the chance to do it. And instead, the theory clearly is double down on the base. Let's not go out on those swing voters. Double down on voting rights, even though that's a base issue and not really one of the big 4 or 5 issues that are confronting the lives of people every day. It's puzzling at a certain point. It's puzzling why he isn't changing chief of staff. It is a massive puzzle at this point, now that everybody sees these poll numbers and everyone in the White House knows what's going on here.
All right, Mark Penn, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.